Welcome to UGA Sports. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Jed May and Trent Smallwood, and this is Rumors versus Facts. Your normal host, Blaine Gilmer, is on vacation, so I'm stepping in for him. Very poorly, I might add. I've already screwed up the show. I didn't even line up the cool graphics, so it's already strike one. So we'll see how the night goes. Probably not a long show tonight because Georgia picked up another commit recently in Christopher Jones, and now they're at 26 commits. And I remember thinking, 26 commits by July. Usually Georgia's done. You start working on 2025, but they got room for about 5-6 more maybe. And we had a really good story by Trent Smallwood talking about the next 5 guys who could likely commit. But if you get those 5 guys, now you're at 31, and you're out of room. So we can talk about the possibilities there. Of course, we'll answer your questions. Put your questions in the comments. Let us know where you're watching the show from. Please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. We've kind of plateaued off a little bit on our our growth in the subscribers. We're still growing, but during the summer it gets a little low. So if you've been thinking about subscribing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell to let you know that when we're going live, you get the notification. We greatly appreciate that. We've been on a meteoric rise on this channel, and we want to keep that up. So I'm going to keep pestering you to follow us when you can. All right, Jed, Trent, talk to me about Christopher Jones. That's the news. We went live yesterday while he was doing his commentary, and he was on a different channel. He committed. Everyone got to see how we handle commitments behind the scenes. And I want to get both of your thoughts on Christopher Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned it on the show last night, but he's been compared to Quay Walker by Glenn Schumann. Glenn Schumann tweeted a Quay Walker highlight to kind of celebrate the news. So, he's like 6'2", 230 pounds. He's more of your, I guess, if you want to call him a traditional inside linebacker, he'll come down, he'll hit you in the box. He can play in space. I think that's somewhere he has room to grow is coverage. And he told me Glenn Schumann wants him to work on his back pedal and stuff like that. But another very, very good add, and a guy who Georgia kind of came from behind on because they were behind Florida. Michigan State got an official visit, and then he took an official visit to Georgia June 16th through 18th, and Georgia was in the pole position for the next 6 weeks and got his commitment yesterday. So another good add by Glenn Schumann, which is just pretty much the order of things nowadays.
Yeah, Georgia always likes to have that guy that's going to roam the field, that Nakobe Dean type, and I think you got that with Justin Williams. And add in, this latest pickup is Natrez Patrick, Quay Walker, those type of guys that can bust up the gap. I remember Natrez Patrick when he was playing against several teams that he'd line up and hit the lead blocker and then let the other linebacker do all the work. So. You kind of see this every single year of Georgia going with a guy, and same thing at running back position, a guy that can kind of be a guy that can utilize different ways, such as a Justin Williams, where you can speed rush him and you can put him in coverage and do numerous things with him, and then a big linebacker that can take on blocks and shed and open up holes. So he definitely fills that void right there.
I talk about there's a possibility to get another linebacker. Tell me about him.
I think Chris Cole is another speedster. He's another guy that's like Justin Williams, the guy that has really transformed his body over the past year. I think he was a little shade under 200 at this time last year, and now he's 220, 6'4", 220. He's long. I think he's a guy that could playing against, you don't see many power teams these days, but a guy that could move out to star against those type of teams. He's a guy that could just be used in a lot of different ways. He's almost got like a Lewis Seen type body frame. So I mean, you can see him at numerous positions, but I just think he's a guy that you could utilize special teams, a speed rush, also lining up and being able to cover those tight ends and running backs.
All right, where's it going?
I think Tennessee is a team that came on late. Of course, they visited Tennessee this past weekend. I think Georgia is a team with all the momentum coming out and coming into this past weekend. Mm-hmm. Tennessee definitely made an impact on him, but I still favored Georgia as of today.
So, guys, I kind of go. I never have a plan for the show. I'm usually just stream of consciousness. you talking about him visiting Tennessee reminds me of Nightcard, a bunch of guys showing up at Auburn. A lot of Georgia commits were on the road visiting other schools. And then, of course, Peyton Woodring takes some of his stuff down off of his social media feed. What is this? Are there some flip concerns right now going on? Georgia lost a guy to Auburn, the linebacker. Now all of a sudden you see some guys taking visits. So Jed, kind of give us a rundown of who visited elsewhere and the Georgia fan concern level, because I'm seeing some comments here. I see Andy, Counterpole, Russ Durham, Jonathan Guthrie, Shahid Huckabee, not to be hunted 2023. Appreciate that. Appreciate Jeff High Top being in there. I did see a couple questions about concerns. Should Georgia be concerned about this, about these visits and such? But let's stick with just, instead of talking about the guys that we will talk about later on in the show, let's talk about the guys who were committed to Georgia who wound up taking visits elsewhere.
Yeah, Nykar went to Auburn. Jaden Perlotti also went to Auburn, 25 commit. Speaking with some people around Colquitt County, they didn't seem too concerned about Nykar. He's a guy who has taken visits through this process. He had a heavy flirtation with Florida State there for a while, especially this spring. So, and I mentioned this last night, Rowdy, but I wonder if Alabama would make a run at Nykar just after having had a receiver flip from Alabama to Auburn. It's not something I've heard. It's just, it's something that logically could happen. I don't think that's something serious necessarily, unless he shows up in Tuscaloosa for a game, then we could talk about it. The Peyton Woodgard stuff, if you would have said, 10 years ago, hey, we're talking about a kid, what he's doing on Twitter as like a huge recruiting story, it sounds stupid. I've spoken to some people, and it was framed to me as more of a kid getting locked in for his season, and that's why he hasn't been super all over Twitter with Georgia stuff, is because he's locked in with the season. Someone on the board made a good point that Carson Beck has taken Georgia stuff in and out of his bios during his career in Athens, and obviously is still here. So, Peyton Woodgard is Alabama's after him, Ohio State's after him, USC is after him to keep him on the West Coast. But could Peyton Woodgard flip still? That's still a possibility. But to freak out about it based on there's no need to panic just on what he does or doesn't have in his social media bios. I don't think, based on what I've heard.
Wasn't there another guy that took a visit, a lineman?
Malachi Tolliver at one point was going to be going to Louisville. I don't know if that was his past weekend or not.
That might have been it.
He's a guy who he was the first lineman in this class. He's loved Georgia since the beginning, so I wouldn't be super concerned about a flip from him either. He had that Louisville trip on the schedule, I believe, before he committed, if it was indeed this past weekend. So no real worry about him, I don't think. But, in the same sense that Trent, I think we talked about this last week, there's going to be some guys, a guy or two that Kirby Smart probably flips on or near signing day. There's going to be a lot of Georgia commits are going to field significant interest from teams across the country over the next few months. That's just the nature of how it is. And would it be shocking if one or two of them flip away from Georgia? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You look at most classes or most years, and Georgia's got 14, 15 commits right now, and you're worrying about 14 or 15 commits visiting elsewhere. Well, now you have 26 guys. These guys are going to take visits. These guys are going to take visits in the fall. That's just the way recruiting is. So I don't think it's any need to panic, because these are top-tier guys that are going to continue to have fun with this process. And, guys in this class, Nykar, he's visiting places. He's going to visit places with Landon Thomas, who flipped to Florida State. And I think Landon Thomas, Auburn thinks they're getting him too. But, it's just the nature of the beast. And
everybody.
Auburn's getting everybody. I think Laramie Tunsil's got a few years eligibility left. But yeah, I think it's just the nature of the beast. If KJ Bolden commits to Georgia on August 5th, fans are going to stress about him until December. It's just what's going to happen, because he's going to take visits.
Yeah. No, and here's the thing, folks. When you were getting, and I don't want to crap on Mark Richt, because good coach, good man. And he brought in some good classes, but he didn't bring in classes that were, had 3,000 points by July. And hell, even Kirby's first few years, remember, you guys saw it would be July and everybody's freaking out because, to your point, there would only be like 12 commits or 8 commits. And everyone's like, what the hell is going on, Kirby? And it became a meme on the board. Guys, it's only June, it's only July. And then, you get 1 or 2 in August before the season started. You get 1 or 2 throughout the season. Then right as the season ended, you got 3 or 4. Then as those December ones would pop, a couple would pop in January, and then he'd flip 1 or 2 guys right around February or have one big announcement. Then all of a sudden he's got the number one class. That's how he did it. Now with the schedule moved up, he's just getting them in early. But to your point, Trent, when you're getting those top players, they are still being recruited heavily by the best teams in the country. Right now, Georgia is the best team, but Alabama, Ohio State, they're going to go after them. Teams with really great NIL deals who are willing to give more to a freshman than Georgia is. So not to say that these kids are going to be like mercenaries, but it's, as Shaheed said, you want a free visit somewhere? Sure, I want a free visit. And I want to take get all that red carpet treatment. It's just like Georgia's coaches. When Kirby Smart has top caliber coaches, well, they are going to be courted by other teams to be offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, head coaches. So if you've got the best coaches, you've got the best players, they're going to come after you. And you'd be an idiot not to see what they had. Take that visit, take that trip, take that interview, and get the nice meals and get them waiting on you hand and foot. Absolutely. So Jason Duke says, everyone's after everyone we want. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how it goes down. So let's turn it to, I like what Ryan Richardson says here. It's going to be an interesting week. This week's going to be really interesting. And if you look at the questions on the dog event, let me pull that up. I think everybody's asked about the same 3 guys, right?
Yeah, it's all different iterations of the same question.
There's not many guys to ask about.
No, that's it. It'll be a short show, folks. We'll probably wrap this up in 13 minutes. There's just not that many guys to talk about. Let me pull this up here real quick. Let me take this down. Why is it not going up? No, well, never mind. The question we got from GOP UGA. Can you please just state that KJ Bolt's committed to Georgia as a fact? I don't know that we can do that, but guys, let's talk about KJ Bolton.
Yeah. I mean, I could state that it's a fact, but that would just be a guess. Like, it's nobody, like, I don't think anybody knows. He's like Williams Nwaneri. I don't think anybody has a firm grasp on what's going to happen. KJ is committing Saturday evening. I want to say it's like 7 o'clock. Georgia was considered a heavy Georgia lean for a long time. Ohio State closed the gap this summer. Florida State has gotten into this thing heavy. Auburn, like you mentioned, Roddy, he was at Auburn over the weekend. So all of us, like all those teams are in it, and it wouldn't really shock me at all if he went to any of the 4 of them. Auburn is coming hard at him. Florida State is, he's said it in interviews. Florida State was his dream school since he was a kid. He's a Florida State fan. So there's that angle. I think with Georgia, what you've got going for you, it's close to home, obviously. The development, whatever. But Kirby Smart has taken such a personal approach to this recruitment for years. I mean, KJ said, I've been to Georgia a bunch of times. Every time I've had a one-on-one meeting with Kirby Smart. When you've got Kirby Smart recruiting you that hard as a defensive back, which KJ projects to play safety in college, that's huge. And he told us at a high school media day last week, I don't have a relationship with any other head coach like the one I have with Kirby Smart. So if he commits to Georgia, that'll be the reason why. But, it's not a done deal to Georgia or to anywhere right now, I don't think.
Yeah, we have a good let's recap the stuff that we had at ujsports.com. If you're not a member, you should be. It's 27 cents a day. Or use promo code UGA30 and get a free 30 days to check out the dog vent where we talk football. Check out the vault where we have all the recruiting stuff. And if you go to the vault right now, you'll see there we have quotes from KJ Bolton after visiting Auburn. Adam Gordon had a very interesting quote. I think that thread's 3 pages long about him talking about what he said after visiting Auburn. Our man John Garcia, a huge addition to the Rivals Network, had a really great story today, catching up with KJ Bolden, asking him where do you stand now, what's going on. Some very interesting comments there. That's actually a free story. You can check it on the front page of UGAsports.com. So that one you can just go read for free. And of course, we had the war room, the giant war room, in which you pointed out some of this stuff. Don't give away too much of it, but I changed my prediction there. I went on last week when I came back from my vacation, and one of the first tidbits of news I got leaving the airport was, hey, Bolden's going to Ohio State. Georgia's just out of it when it comes to the whole NIL deal. And what that means is that Georgia has, when they're, the coach can't set it up, the Classic City Collective can. The coach can kind of say, look, this is what I prefer. And Kirby doesn't want kids coming in here getting $300,000, $400,000, $800,000 as a true freshman who's never played a down, and a center like Cedric Van Pran, who's the leader of your offense. That whole thing wasn't in place when he signed, and now all of a sudden, let's say he only has like $150,000 worth of NIL. It can lead to some problems in the locker room. If you're like, hey, I'm getting paid 8 times what you're getting paid, dude, I don't have to listen to you. We saw this at Texas A&M, allegedly. And Kirby's like, look, let's try to bring our freshmen all in on the same plane. And as the NIL grows, we get everybody this really good deals. But we also have a war fund for guys who might be going pro, an incentive to stick around. Starters who bloomed later. Let's take care of those guys. Let's keep more of our money for guys who've proven it. There are other schools. Ohio State was the one I was told. It's like, look, we don't, whatever you want, kid, we got you covered. And again, this is all secondhand information, but every once in a while, Georgia will say, look, we got this level, but we can go more. And I think that's what might be happening with KJ Bolden. They're like, look, we need a safety in this class. We need him. Missed out on 1 or 2 over the years. As you said, this is one that Kirby's been heavily involved in. And it's not highest bidder type thing. I think Bolden wants to play at Georgia. I think his family wants him to play there. But it's tough to turn it down when you can go to the NFL from any of these schools, and they've got really nice packages for you. Now, he's at Buford. Trent, I know you're at Buford all the time. You live in that area. How much is the whole – what are you hearing about this? Because I think when you went in through your comments into the War Room thread on the Vault, a lot of people were excited to hear that. And, of course, we won't give away everything we've had. We don't want to mess up our subscribers of UGA Sports, that they are special people. We don't want to give away all their insider information. But kind of give us your thoughts on this. And if you would, specifically address the Buford angle.
I mean, I think the Buford angle is a serious issue because I think there's a lot of pro other schools other than Georgia in that school, and I think it's went down a lot over the years. I think it was a lot worse probably 8 to 10 years ago, but I think it's still a problem. You're seeing year after year these top Buford prospects going elsewhere. I mean, even a guy like Justice Haynes last year, I know he was a Woodward Academy transfer in, but when he transferred to Buford from Woodward Academy, he was a heavy dog lean, and then he goes to Alabama. So I think that there is it's an obvious issue there, but I think there's been that guys in the system that they're trying to change that. I do think you've seen more pro Georgia stuff as of late, and but regarding KJ Bolden, I think this is a kid that's just enjoying the process. And honestly, I've never encountered a kid, or maybe once, in 10 or 11 years, that you've talked to after a visit that said, God, that visit sucked. I mean,
I've had 1 or 2, but we've done, you and me together have done thousands of interviews. So that is a absolute rarity, but you're right. They come out of it, especially some of these official visits.
Yeah. And especially a weekend like this past weekend. And
that weekend, come on.
And talking about NIL, factoring in there, KJ is a guy, not only does Georgia need a safety in this class, but they need a safety that can come in and play early in his career. And KJ is kind of that type of player to be able to come in. He's dynamic, enough to come in and play kind of like a Malachi Starks. And you got Javon Bullard on the roster that they moved to safety, that played star. It kind of leaves the star up for grabs this season, but you might have both of those positions open come next year when KJ is entering the system. So I think that is a big deal, not just landing a safety, but landing a safety that can play early at Georgia.
That's a good point. So Georgia really wants him. Everybody's after KJ Bolden. We've got a request there from the Boy Racer saying, what's your final prediction on Bolden, Frazier, and Nawari, heading into their decision in the next 7 days? Maybe we'll save that for the end. But a lot, again, questions about Bolden, Nawari, Frazier. How many of those three do you believe knows right now where they're going?
One.
I knew you already said it. Which one is it?
Well, I think, I'm saying this. I think Bolden has a good idea of where he wants to go. It's just a matter of if everything matches up. I think Frazier canceling his visit at Texas A&M kind of tells you a lot about. I think his decision was done early last week, and I know he had. I think it's called Hell Week at his high school this past weekend, where it's the start of summer camp there, but. I think his decision's done. Now, Williams Nwaneri, I've heard mixed reports as far as there's been this kind of a disagreement within his group of where he wants to go. I think there's we've seen this before with Luther Burden with the whole Missouri thing. I think Williams. Might want to. I think he likes Georgia. I think he likes Oklahoma. I think the draw to stay in Missouri, or maybe the NIL package to stay in Missouri, is something that the family and his corner are really considering. So it's kind of you hear mixed things on that, but I do think I don't think a final decision has come out of that just yet.
All right, Jed. So Frazier's the only one that do you feel confident knows where he's going right now?
I think so. I mean, I think like Trent said, that's been a little more, I don't want to say traditional, straightforward, I guess. I mean, it just seems Georgia has surged to the forefront after they, they got him on campus for that unofficial in June, and the momentum. I mean, he took a visit to Oregon, and that was a little bit of a concern. Trent, you mentioned. In your War Room posts, Alabama might be the main concern, but I think Georgia's been able to hold off everybody coming from every which direction. So, I think Frazier's got his mind made up. He's committing on Sunday evening, and if I would pick Georgia right now.
And only one official visit scheduled for the fall. So, and that's Georgia. So, that's another interesting tidbit.
Let's go down here and see. Hey, Trent. What was this? 6 days ago, you predicted he's going to Georgia. So did Ben Bachman. Our boy Ben did it back in June. So that's your prediction, which is fair. I mean, I trust folks. A future cast is not guaranteed. It's just what we're thinking. I should probably put mine in too, real quick, because I think you're right. I think that's
live on the show.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's where he's going, or at least. If I had to pick today, I would pick that's where he's going to go. So I'll put mine in now. So, all right, my future cast is locked in. So. All right, let's go through the questions here. I want to see if there's any more about Bolden. Let's see, we got order of confidence and who commits to Georgia. From Dog B. Dog B's been around a long time. I appreciate Dog B and Dog C. Order of confidence and who commits to Georgia out of these two, Bolden and Nawari? And if so, does it stick or is it going to December either way? The reason I want to talk about that one is because we kind of mentioned those two guys a second ago. But if you had to pick, KJ Bolden or Williams Nawari, which one do you think comes to Georgia first? Confidence. And again, does it stick? I think you made a good point there earlier. Yeah, August 5th, KJ Bolden decides, but that one is going to go hammer and tongs until signing day.
Yeah, and I think Williams Nwaneri will too, because
That's a good point. Yeah.
People have floated, Oklahoma, Missouri, two other schools involved. Say he commits to Missouri, and if Missouri's not good, or worse yet for them, the coaching staff is replaced, that obviously throws open a whole new can of worms. And, so both of those guys, I think, are going to be over until they sign. KJ had that quote in that, I think it was John Garcia's story. When I commit, I want to shut my recruitment down, but I'm going to have my ears open too. So
I'm just laughing, but I know what he's saying. Just
yeah,
the way he said it,
it's
made me laugh.
So it'll like you said, it's not going to be official until December, whatever signing day is, 18th or 20th or whatever. So
I think if Williams Nwaneri picks Missouri, he has a better chance of sticking than if he picks Georgia or Oklahoma, and I think that could be shaky come December.
So kind of the Luther Burden effect?
I think so.
So now that makes perfect sense. If you're committed to a school out of state, I could see it being a little shakier than if you're committed to a school in state. By the same token, if KJ Bolden picks Georgia and he's still getting tons of recruitment from Ohio State, FSU, Auburn, does he stick with Georgia? Does in other words, if he committed to Georgia, would that make him more likely to stick versus committing to one of those others? And how effective Kirby's been at flipping guys that he wants.
I think so because you got Dylan Rawl at the school now. They've become close. Yeah. I think if he picks Georgia, there's a better chance of him sticking because I do think if he chose elsewhere, to go along with the seasons that school might have, I think Georgia would be right there in the thick of it to the end for Bolden. So I think he has a better chance sticking at Georgia than he would at the other schools.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's go with Rome, Georgia Dog. Rome, Georgia, one of my favorite cities because my wife went to school up there. So if I don't say that, she will whip my ass. Between McCray, Nwaneri, and Breland, rank in order of most likely to sign with Georgia. First, tell us who they are, and then rank them in order of most likely to sign with the Dogs.
Yeah, LJ McCray, as defensive end, edge type out of Florida. He was kind of the headline visitor of the cookout weekend over this past weekend. Georgia fighting with Florida State, Miami, basically Florida schools and also Georgia in that one. Williams Nwaneri, we talked about, and Aiden Breland, high school teammates with Nate Frazier at Mater Dei out there. Georgia and Oregon are kind of fighting for him. Out of those three, I'd probably go Nwaneri is least likely. I would go probably Breland most likely and McCray behind because Trent, you and I both heard, reason for confidence for Georgia with the Breland one over the last week or two. Yeah,
that's the exact order I would have him in. I would have him in Breland, McCray, then Nwaneri. I just think Georgia is battling basically one team for McCray in Florida. Georgia's basically battling one team, and Breland with Oregon. I think the others just there's too many schools involved with only a week to go before he commits. So that's the order I would put it in. And Breland, if Nate Frazier does commit, he's got that in his back pocket as well. It's also Aiden Breland talks with Justin Green a good bit at Mountain View. So that's a UGA commit talking to a UGA target right there.
And you also have a future cast in for him that you put in a few days ago. And how confident are you in that?
I am, really confident going. He's another one that was expected to visit. Miami is another school that's in kind of in the mix for him. He canceled both his Texas A&M and Miami visits this past week. They had the camp at school, but he was, expected on those campuses. I feel really good about Breland, probably slightly, right behind Frazier.
Okay. Let's go with the question from Riser. It says, UJ is no stranger to recruiting pairs or triumvirates of running backs. Oftentimes, those guys turn out to be great friends like Nick and Sony or Marshall and Gurley. Do our two current and one potential 2024 running backs currently have a relationship? Have they talked about playing together and getting to know one another? So, how tight are the Georgia running back commits?
So I actually asked Dwight Phillips about this the other day. I was like, "Hey, what was it like recruiting Chauncey Bowens?" He's like, "Actually, I haven't talked with him that much." They visited together.
There's your answer. I love it.
They visited together in January. It was the last weekend in January, which is actually when Dwight Phillips committed to Georgia while on that visit. And Dwight told me, he felt that Georgia was in a good position with Chauncey Bowens on that visit. Chauncey at the time was still committed to Florida. So, the recruits have a group text. They know each other. They're familiar with each other, but, not super tight. Now, Nate Frazier was in Athens with Chauncey Bowens on his official visit. Nate's was unofficial. And, we've all seen that video of Chauncey Bowens, and he grabs the mic during the photo shoot and says, "I'm committed to Georgia." But we heard a lot over that weekend that Nate Frazier might have also done the whole silent commit game. It came out that wasn't necessarily the case, but I think Nate and Chauncey have more of a relationship than maybe Dwight Phillips and Chauncey Bowens. But all that to say, they'll obviously form a pretty tight bond once they get to Athens. So, the Gurley and Marshall one was unique because they obviously were from the same state. I'm sure they grew up, all-star games and
track team together, by the way.
Yeah, all that. That was a unique thing. Trent, you know better than I would. I don't know how much of a relationship Nick Chubb and Sony Michel had before they got to Georgia. Obviously they're inseparable, always linked together forever now, but I don't know how much of a relationship they had as recruits.
I don't remember.
I don't think they did.
I know James Cook was close with, or grew close with. Let's see, what year did James Cook come in? Who was the other running back?
Was that Evander?
Zamir
White. Yeah, goddamn.
I know they had grown closer through camps and stuff, and throughout that process. But both of those guys, you couldn't get nothing out of interviewing them. They were both quiet kids. So, but what I think is interesting, this class,
they were horrible interviews. God, they were bad.
They were bad.
You were being polite, but let's call them what they were. They were shit interviews. I love them both to death. They're both great kids.
I remember being up in Indianapolis and interviewing James Cook, and it was like, God,
ready to be like, I'm not going to give you anything, dude.
But the thing is, you could go sit next to him while he was sitting on the sidelines in the indoor facility up there in Indianapolis. He'd talk to you a lot more. But once he had the mic in front of him, he was like, "No."
He just clam up. Hey, Nick Chubb's the same way though.
Yeah.
So Nick and Sony, Sony was very gregarious, but Nick did not like the spotlight at all. So I didn't. They just got thrown in as roommates and became best friends.
Well, we talk about the 26 commits a good bit, and what many don't realize is 26 commits from 13 different states,
really?
Which is pretty remarkable. You got Texas and California, you got Georgia, you got Florida, then you got North Carolina, you got New York, you got New Jersey, you got Iowa, you got Indiana, Missouri, Illinois, Virginia.
Two from New Jersey. That just blows my mind.
And it's states, to build on that, it's not even states that are football powers. It's like you said, it's Illinois, it's Indiana. You've got
Iowa.
Yeah, Ellis Robinson and Nair Daniels from New Jersey, which they play good football in New Jersey, but still.
Connecticut. Is there football in Connecticut?
They got Marcus Harrison from, I believe, upstate New York. So it's strange to see, just like all the different states represented in this thing.
The last two guys Georgia's got from New York, they have been massive human beings. I don't know what they're doing up there, but Isaiah Wilson and I don't know what the combined height and weight on those two guys are, but it's massive.
To your point, I'm looking That is, I'm no genius here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 9 guys from Georgia out of that 26.
Well, 8 really, because Raiola's from
California.
Arizona.
Or Arizona. No, which Arizona would add a 14th state. So
Yeah.
Wow, that's so basically when we're breaking that. Hey, I know you're going to be on the road this Friday, going to scrimmages. We will try to cover the state and go watch Georgia prospects play in person. But we're going to have to fly out to Illinois, Iowa, Connecticut, New Jersey, North Carolina, Texas. You know, we don't. We need to raise our prices because we can't afford all those flights. So.
I mean, very well could have two guys from Virginia if Chris Cole picks Georgia. So that would be another one in Virginia.
And then Williams-Nwaneri would add Missouri. Add another state to the list.
Well, they have
Scott Miles. Come on, man.
They have Jaden Riddell already from Missouri.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hey, share your Sky Miles with UJ Sports, or maybe we'll do a GoFundMe or something. Speaking of Chris Cole, we talked about him earlier in the show. OEJ on the Vault has a question about him. If you guys, real quick, in case OEJ wasn't tuned in earlier, what are your thoughts on Chris Cole as a prospect, and what is your final prediction that players you feel will finish with? We kind of did that one already, OEJ, but guys, real quick on your thoughts on Chris Cole, just a recap of what you said earlier.
I think Chris Cole's really good. Trent mentioned he's added about 30 pounds over the past year or so. So now he's at like that 220 mark, but he's still got the athleticism, the versatility to kind of play all over the place. He's more of he's probably maybe a better athlete, a pure athlete than maybe a Christopher Jones is.
He reminds me a lot of like Adam Anderson when he came in. He's probably underweight to play edge, but is going to have to, pack his lunch to play inside linebacker. But it's just too good of an athlete to turn down.
I mean, when I talked to him over the summer, he said, actually, this was in the spring when he got offered. He said that Kirby Smart told him his ability is limitless. So that's one of the quotes that sticks in my head from this entire cycle. And at the time, Chris Cole, I mean, he's the 140th. At the time, he was a 3-star recruit. Georgia offered him like that day, and he's obviously blown up since. But it was Kirby Smart is that Radi. We talked about this last night. How the rankings don't necessarily match the coaches' boards. Georgia saw a lot in this kid and has been pursuing him hard for probably 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah, when they bring him into camp, and they will put them through a grinder. It's like, okay, and you basically work the kid out to exhaustion, and then you push him. So you basically take out all his energy and then see how much he can do after he's exhausted. And if you impress the coaches there, they're going to make you an offer, and they're going to go after you. And that's something that in our camps, you don't see it on film very often, especially these really elite guys. They just destroy their high school competition. They burn right through them. You guys covered Adam Anderson. I mean, who blocked him? Who blocked Trayvon Walker? Who could cover Chris Conley? They just kill what they do. Then you get them in a Rivals camp or a Nike camp or an Under Armour camp. Those guys are doing a lot of reps, but they're not being pushed like they are at the UGA camp. So we don't get to do what the coaches get to against very good competition, wear these guys out. And so their evaluations are always going to be a little varied from what ours are. So if Georgia wants Chris Cole, there's definitely something there to him, especially, hey, he's one of the top 150 players out of 3 million in the country. So if Georgia can get him, get him. All right, UGA Bows is a funny bump. I like that. And Team Line Drive 02 says, what is the truth about what is known about Bolden? So let's get back to KJ Bolden real quick here. And then we'll follow it up with a question from Clock 11. Both of you give me one truth that you know about KJ Bolden that people can say, look, we don't know where he's going. We don't know this, but we do know at least these 2 facts. So each of you give me one.
I think, it came from him himself. Kirby Smart has got the best head coach relationship with him out of anybody, out of Mike Norvell, out of Hugh Freeze, out of Ryan Day. Kirby Smart's got the best head coach relationship with KJ Bolden. It's straight from his mouth. Yeah,
and his parents favor Georgia. They've kind of let him know that that they've given their will for him to go to Georgia. I'm not sure that the other schools have gotten that.
My fact that I heard this week would be this kid might be one of the few exceptions Georgia makes when it comes to like an NIL program. Now, again, Kirby can't set that up. The coaches can't do that. That all goes through the Classic City Collective, but the collectives are able to not exactly, coordinate with the coaches. They can't use that as an induction to get a kid to come. Andy Stowe was asking about this earlier. The coaches can't say that, but they can say, hey, you've got this many people who are trying to get a kid to be the face of their company, and be it an ad or something like that. Try to put together a package for it, because a lot of the people go to the Classic City Collective and say, look, I don't know who I want, but I want someone to advertise my real estate business. I want someone to advertise my bank, my law firm, my car sales, my car dealership, my septic tank cleaning system, whatever it is. And they say, okay, well, we got some kids coming in. And so they show them what is the potential out there. And Kirby can say, look, don't put $600,000 into one kid, try to spread it out. So that's how Kirby can set his preferences without setting policy and precedent, which you're not allowed to do, or set policy, which you're not allowed to do, because then it can be considered an inducement. So for folks I know it's kind of confusing. It is the Wild West, and it's a lot of stuff that they'll say, you can't do this, you can't do that. Who the hell's policing it right now? We don't see that anywhere. But I will say that if anybody could break the mold right now, it would be KJ Bolden, because I think Georgia really wants him. You saw I thought you brought up Justice Hayes, right? How long did they go after Justice Hayes? How long did they go after Caleb Downs? There's so many guys that they went, who's the other runner? Was it Zach Evans they went after forever? Donovan. So many guys that they fought tooth and nail for. And hell, they're probably still going after Jeremiah Smith for all I know, that you don't get them. And sometimes that, Kirby's like, look, if you can't if you're going to go somewhere else for more money, so be it. I'll get somebody else. But this is a kid they may say, look, I don't care what anybody else is offering. Come here. All right. Jed, I know you're going to be up late. You want to tell everybody why?
Yeah, so August 1st is the day where coaches, staffers, whatever, can directly contact 2025 recruits. That starts at midnight, and it's, as kids do, everyone takes to social media to say who's reaching out and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be up following who Georgia's reaching out to in about 2.5 hours. There's names out there like Georgia's going to be reaching out to Ryan Montgomery, the quarterback from Ohio. They're going to be reaching out to number 1 prospect Elijah Griffin out of Savannah. But, it's always interesting to see who, quote unquote, reports, being in contact with Georgia at midnight. So, I thought it was September 1st. And Trent had to remind me that it's moved up from September 1st this year. So that was news to me this morning. So, but yeah, big day for the class of 2025, because obviously they don't have to go through the intermediaries of college coaches calling their high school coach to tell the prospect to call the school. There's none of that anymore. It's all, coaches can reach out directly. So big kind of, this kicks off the unofficial start to the 2025 cycle in earnest, I guess.
Folks are wondering what I'm scrolling through. This is the list. 2025 Georgia football offer list. These are the kids who have reported offers. So let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 running backs have been offered by Georgia.
Hey, there's a Beaver kid at the top.
Yeah, hey, look, Jabri Coleman is committed, so that's good with him. And then let's look at the wide receivers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, got 30, 35. It keeps going. 5 tight ends, 20 tackles, some guards, ton of defensive tackles. It's pretty easy. Just go to ujsports.com, click on recruiting, and you can click on offers. And you got to wonder, out of all these different guys, how many of them will hear from Georgia tonight. I'm sure a ton of them will hear from them tomorrow, but that's pretty extensive there. So it will be. And again, that just shows how the calendar has been advanced. So it's pretty tough. All right, one more question for tonight. Let's go to Clock 11. He says, provided Georgia doesn't get KJ Bolden, who do they look at as another option at safety in this class? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, and
like they're all in, right?
I've brought this up with you, Roddy. Like Cam Michael is a name we've talked about, and I think that would work out as Georgia might pursue Cam Michael harder, have him play corner, and then go full in on DeMello Jones, current commit, obviously playing safety or star. So, there's not a whole lot of names that spring to mind as saying, okay, well, let us pivot to this guy at safety. Xavier Phil Same at Florida. A Florida commit is a guy that Georgia had some interest in. They could ramp up pursuit of a flip for him. They could obviously, there's always the portal that they could look at maybe. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of Trent, unless I'm just totally blanking on somebody. There's not a whole lot of names that spring to mind as saying, hey, this is the next guy up if KJ Bolden goes somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think this could be a situation where it's a Kyron Jones type thing, where it's evaluate during the fall, evaluate the season, and then be able to flip somebody from NC State like Kyron Jones or somebody like that. So I think that will, if Georgia's not able to land Bolden, I think it makes it that more important to keep, or to try to land Woodyard, and then maybe Cam Michael, or evaluate the position during the fall, and push for a late flip from somebody, maybe under the radar guy or something.
I'm looking at all the safeties that they've offered. And of course, sometimes, as you say, it could be a different player, a different position. The guy could be just listed as a DB, or you have a cornerback move over. KJ Bolden is one of the few guys that's undecided. Jalen Hayward is undecided.
There's a name on that list is Zaquan Patterson, and he's a guy who
5-star
had interest in Georgia, and Georgia had Woodyard was higher on the board. KJ Bolden obviously is higher on the board. He's got a top 5 now, and Georgia's not in it, or top 3 or whatever. I wonder if Georgia would try to get back in it with him, maybe, because there was some interest on Patterson's part there. Marcellus Barnes is committed to Virginia Tech. He's a guy who he visited Georgia, I guess, in the spring. And, I talked to him and he said he loved it and all that kind of stuff. They could try to flip him if he has a strong senior year. But, yeah, it's like you said, Trent. I think it would be Kyron Jones didn't really emerge as a flip target until, October, November. And he was listed as a running back to begin with. So, if KJ Bolden goes elsewhere, it would probably be a scenario where they figure things out in the fall, evaluate, and then kind of make a decision who they really want to kind of turn up the heat on.
Or you just flip over to his safety mate at Buford, that Tyshawn White that's committed to North Carolina. So,
yeah, there you go.
So if they don't get KJ Bolden, here's the thing, folks, and I'm not trying to sound like a Kirby fanboy. I just, having been made to look the fool for the entire time Kirby Smart's been in Athens, he's got a backup plan. He has a plan B, he has a plan C. And if they don't get KJ Bolden, then they'll have a plan B, or they'll have a plan C. And there are a lot more guys that want to come to Georgia than Georgia has spots for. And you definitely see that in with the transfer portal. So they don't get a guy to sign right now. And Kirby loves to get them before they go into the portal. He likes to get them here, get them into, have them as an early enrollee, start teaching them, maybe some bowl practices, spring practice. He likes to have them for 4 years, 5 if they take a redshirt year. If you don't, I don't say take someone else's problem, but you don't want to take a kid who's learned a different system. He's a little bit behind the 8 ball. But he took a pair of wide receivers that are going to do pretty good things in Athens. So if he has the need, which he needed in the wide receiver room, he'll go out and he took the best wide receiver from Missouri, took the best wide receiver from Mississippi State. And it would not shock me if he went out and needed a top safety. If he went and got the best safety from some other school. So definitely a possibility there. All right. Anything else you guys want to cover? Anything that we have not mentioned?
Jed, you need to cover our sponsor.
Yeah, Julie, Julie the bookkeeper. They're Georgia fans. They will help you. If you've got bookkeeping needs for your small business, give Julie and Chris a call. It's juliethebookkeeper.com.
Well, that's
And if they'll give you a free 30-minute, a free consultation. They'll get you going from there. So they're Georgia fans and they can save you money. So what more of an ad read do you need than that?
No, when you have the one thing we have at UGA Sports is we have a ridiculously loyal fan base. So I can tell you that if you were to go with Julie, the bookkeeper, and her husband, they are going to be loyal to you. They're brand loyal. They take care of people. And why not use somebody who supports your team? So hit them up when you get a chance. All right, guys. Anything else?
I don't think so. Just busy week ahead. 3 commitments or three announcement dates all coming up, and it's
give us the order, because we should have mentioned that earlier on.
KJ Bolden is Saturday, Nate Frazier is Sunday, and Williams Nwaneri. As of right now, his decision dates floated around a little bit, but it's looking like Monday, August 7th for Williams Nwaneri.
Back to back. Well, maybe I should go out of town.
Didn't Kirby have this in early July? Had them back to back. So you never know.
All right, he's dead. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for all the topics we had for this week's show. And I appreciate everybody in the comment section there who dropped in a question. We always appreciate that. Tune in. I know we will be covering 11 Live's covering the KJ Bolden one on Saturday. Sunday, we'll definitely have a watch along for that as well. And I think maybe we can, if we find out what's going on with the Warrior, we could do one Monday too. So anyways, stay tuned to UGA Sports, at least our Twitter channel, our Facebook page, and the site itself, and we will let you know when we will have our next Rumors versus Facts show. Until then, take care.